In 1966, Ghana's President Kwame Nkrumah called the International Monetary Fund the financial arm of empire and rejected their terms. While he was on a plane to Vietnam, his government was overthrown by a military coup. The new regime signed the IMF deal within days. 6 years later, Salvador Allende warned the United Nations that Chile was a victim of a new imperialism that blocked its access to international finance. Shortly after he nationalized foreign-owned copper mines, the military seized power. Within weeks, international credit lines reopened. In Indonesia, President Suharto served as a loyal enforcer for decades until 1998, when he resisted the IMF's demands to cut fuel subsidies. After a single publicized image of his humiliation during negotiations, riots broke out and his government collapsed. These three leaders each challenged the established economic world order, stood in the IMF's way, and disappeared from power shortly after. For a sovereign leader, defying the terms of this unelected institution precedes a rapid transition to a more compliant government. At the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, the IMF was presented as a mission of peace. The goal was to build the economic foundations of international cooperation on the bedrock of trust, creating a lender of last resort that would prevent the chaos of currency wars. But even as the ink was drying, the room was unequal. Power sought heavily with the United States and the wealthy nations that emerged from the war unscathed, giving them the primary voice in shaping the new global balance. Consider a nation where the currency has collapsed and inflation hits 11,000%. The local elites have hidden their wealth in Swiss accounts. The shelves are bare and the people are starving. A diplomat arrives with a rescue package, fresh capital and technical support delivered through a loan agreement. When a nation is desperate enough, this offer feels like the only possible hope for survival. A desperate nation's search for stability becomes the point of entry for total economic oversight. This oversight is enforced through conditionality. This term masks a colder reality. To unlock the money, a country must freeze wages, slash social spending, and fire thousands of public workers in a single stroke. In 1985, Bolivia was forced to accept this shock therapy after its economy collapsed. Fuel prices tripled overnight, and price controls were abolished, leaving jobless citizens like Carlos excluded from public support systems. The conditions escalated in 1999 when the public water utility in Cochabamba was sold to a foreign consortium. Control of all water sources, even community wells and rainwater, was handed over to private billing. Bills soared by as much as 300%, making water a luxury many could no longer afford. When the people fought back, the government responded with tanks and martial law. On April 8, 2000, Victor Hugo Daza, a 17-year-old protesting for his right to water, was shot dead by a soldier. IMF mandates can transform basic human survival into a corporate commodity, forcing vulnerable populations to pay the price for international debt. The playbook creates a cycle that is difficult to break. In 1976, Argentina's military dictatorship secretly moved $12 billion of private sector debt onto the public books, leaving the people to pay for the elite's wealth. When the dictatorship ended, the IMF arrived as the gatekeeper of credit. To pay off the debts of the previous regime, the new government accepted structural adjustments that gutted public assets and erased social subsidies. By 2001, Argentina defaulted. Savings vanished, pensions were frozen, and poverty exploded. This led to yet another restructuring, ensuring that even decades later, the cycle of debt and borrowing remained unbroken. These interventions create a structural dependency that keeps a nation borrowing to pay off the interest on its previous loans. If these policies consistently leave developing countries poorer, we must examine whose interests they actually serve. The designers of these recommendations are experts who understand the economic realities they are creating. The IMF acts like a shareholder club. The United States can veto any major decision, while 54 African countries have only 2 directors. This imbalance turns the institution into a vacuum machine, stripping governments of their resources, while foreign corporations snap up privatized assets. This is a system of debt imperialism. Conquest no longer requires a military invasion when it can be achieved through a contract. The system socializes the suffering of the developing world while entirely privatizing the profits for the global elite. Today, the target of this control is shifting from national debt to individual freedom. During the pandemic, physical cash was demonized as a health risk, accelerating the move toward a fully digital financial system. This has cleared the path for central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. Unlike cash, every purchase made with a CBDC is recorded, mapped, and traceable in real time. The IMF is already setting the global standards for this transition. They are providing the design and strategy for CBDC implementation in over 130 countries, representing 98% of global GDP. The same institution that has spent decades stripping nations of their economic sovereignty is now writing the code for the money you use every day. CBDCs are programmable. This means they can be tied to predictive algorithms that dictate what you are allowed to own and what you are permitted to buy. Spend too much on a restricted category, and the algorithm can deny the transaction instantly. The IMF is adapting its macro-level conditionality for the individual. The power used to starve non-compliant nations is being refined into a tool that can freeze the resources of non-compliant people. This grants unelected technocrats the ability to enforce behavioral quotas with punitive precision, operating entirely without democratic accountability or oversight. The chains of imperialism have simply changed form. They moved from military force to national debt, and are now being locked shut as programmable code.